There was some big news that came out today out of the Big Ten as Tony Petitti is standing by the University of Michigan, stating that he does not believe that the University of Michigan should be hit any harder than they already have. Now, before we get on this topic, I want to talk about what actually that the Michigan Wolverines have been hit with so far this year. They have 3 years of probation. They got a $100,000 fine from the NCAA and a $100,000 fine from the Big Ten. They have limited recruiting restrictions per the NCAA, and Sharon Moore was suspended 2 games in his role in the Connor Stallions investigation. Also, Jim Harbaugh has a 4-year show cause in the NCAA. Those 2 violations come on the fact of Connor Stallions and the recruiting violation of Michigan. But, Joe, we have a situation here. Why is Tony Petitti coming out of left field saying Michigan should not get hit at any more punishment than what they've already received, number one? And, Joe, do we agree with him that Michigan everything should be passed with the Matt Weiss investigation that is ongoing?
Well, I don't know if a lot of this was the Matt Weiss stuff was brought up. It didn't seem like what I read with Dan Wetzel's article that came out that was included in the scope of this. I don't know actually Petitti's thoughts on if he feels that there should be any sort of penalty that's delivered to them because of that or anything along those lines.
He came out today and said no. I mean, you can't say that they – can we get to a baseline on something? There's no way that he can say what he said and not know that the Weiss and the Weiss situation is ongoing. Fair?
Okay. Yeah. But it felt like that the most of this, the weight of most of this was tied directly to the sign stealing scandal. I feel like, Blake, that this story has a lot less to do with Michigan and a lot more to do with Tony Petitti. And the reason why I say this is because of the light that it now paints Tony Petitti in. We look back at when this story broke back in 2023.
Yes.
And when the battles were being had and the fights were starting to bubble up between, quite literally, Tony Petitti and representatives at the University of Michigan. That was a very contentious situation. Now, all of a sudden, a couple of years later, he's going to bat for a team in his conference. That concept of him going to bat for Michigan makes total sense. It makes complete sense. You want your team to still hold their national title. You don't want them to lose that. You don't want that to be marked when we're in an era where the Big Ten has won the last 2 national titles. You want that to stay. But in the circumstance of how negatively they spoke about you, how the fans, Michigan fans, booed you, administrators were upset with your handling of that situation, we forget of how really brutal that whole conversation was.
Harbaugh when they were on the plane ride, right?
They tried to get a restraining order in order to allow for Harbaugh to coach, and I believe that Michigan ended up pulling back. This is
No, it got denied. Remember? It got denied.
Yeah. This is a conspiracy theory that I have right here. Before anyone jumps on me and I'm not saying that this is the truth. I'm merely just pitching this to stir shit up. We are a day away from Tony Petitti addressing Big Ten Media Day to talk about the new college football playoff model and his stance on it, and he is in the minority on his belief. What if the SEC had something to do with this piece of information about him reading this letter and sharing this, or not reading this letter, but sharing this letter with the Big Ten, which this was not public information. This happened back in June. Mm-hmm. This was not something that was publicly covered until now. Right. What if the SEC had something to do with this in order to call into question the credibility of Tony Petitti? I might be going a little off the rails with that.
Yeah, because Dan Wenzel's not the person that he would have given that to.
I don't think Petitti gave him that, though.
No, if the SEC gave it to...
that's a good point.
They wouldn't give it to Dan Wenzel. Even though he's at ESPN, they would have given it to Ross. Sankey would have Sankey would have hand-delivered it. Now, listen, Dan Wenzel's a lot of things. I'd never necessarily agree with him during the COVID thing, but in reference to commissioners talking to Dan Wenzel, with all due respect to every other journalist that's out there, we literally got Dan Wenzel in the middle of the Michigan investigation, like people giving him all. Like he's in the middle of the documentary, literally given all. Dan Wenzel is fantastic at his job. I don't think your conspiracy theory is necessarily completely off in reference to maybe it's somebody from the back door type of situation and happening here. I'm not saying an SEC team wouldn't be involved. What I would say is, though, Joe, what does it matter to them? Like, what does it matter to the SEC? Why would they? It doesn't benefit them to try to put Petitti down. I can understand the logic of you take Petitti down a couple of notches, and then Greg Sankey gets what he wants. I understand what you're saying there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's what because Tony Petitti's still got to agree. If you piss him off, he's never going to agree on anything, and we stick at 12 games. If you wanted to go to 16. Now, we had Sankey out there last week talking 4 different times on 4 different shows saying, I mean, I can be sold on 16. I think 12 is more comfortable for me. I mean, he said it 4 times last week. I don't know if he really wants to expand. I'm not saying your conspiracy theory is off or wrong or anything like that, but it is very interesting. The thing that pisses me off the most, and I do use my words in my humble opinion in the correct fashion, why would you write that? Why would you stick up for them and say, Joe, with all due respect, let me just say it like this. My grandfather used to preach to me that a still tongue keeps a wise head, as his grandson does a podcast, and that's how he makes a living when he talks for a living. But you can't go out there in a letter specifically talking about no more punishment coming down from Michigan, even if it painted the sign stealing, because, Joe, the God's honest truth is they should be under investigation for a lack of institutional control.
Yeah, we said this.
And we've already, and look, we got tagged in today. Did you see it?
That was weird. That was really weird. I don't know what that account was. I think very intense. It's very intense, that video.
Listen, to the guy that edited it, good job for you. But there also comes a point in time where this is a bad look for Tony Petitti, in my opinion, because if this were about like the sign stealing scandal, if this were about the hot dogs and the microwave and the food that Harbaugh paid to have kids eat, let's just be honest, stop that. Like, come on. Kids are getting paid NIL. He can feed them some freaking hamburgers and hot dogs. Like, stop, okay? I'm even over the Stallions thing based off of what they hit him with. But now you got a bombshell. And here's where the problem comes in for me and why this is so much of a bad look for Tony Petitti. Joe, female athletes' accounts got hacked by this dude, allegedly. And then you put out a letter that gets leaked out saying that they shouldn't get any more violations, and the biggest one hasn't even dropped yet, technically. Like, this dude was taking intimate photos from people's phones and computers. Again, allegedly.
Yeah.
Joe, this, if he's found guilty of this, the charges that would come after him are egregious. Like, what, brother, he broke multiple federal laws, and I'm just going to tell you, interstate commerce laws, okay? In some of these situations, you should have been quiet, and you should have let it played out to everybody. I understand he didn't go public with it, but you can't tell other universities and presidents and schools that you want to defend Michigan over something that's got, I hate to say it like this, sexual stuff going on, intimate photos of women that were going on. And Joe, what about in the investigation if we find out that what he was doing with those photos? Then you got a massive egg on your face if you're Tony Petitti in the Big Ten. I am not in the camp, never will I be in the camp that they shouldn't get something for this Weiss investigation. I think they should be hit a little bit harder. I got to be honest. they need to take a postseason away from them. If you're going to be in the situation that you have dished out Tennessee, LSU, and other institutions that you have taken out punishment for in the past, you got to do the same damn things that you've done to those other programs. By the way, newsflash, for the LSU one, when the post-game ban happened, Joe, they didn't even wait for it to play out in court. The NCAA hit LSU in an investigation of covering up sexual misconduct. Joe, it was found in court to be quote unquote baseless. So we're getting to a situation where I get saying about the Stallions and the recruiting violations. I get it. But Joe, you got to read the room. The room is that their investigation might not be over, and it shouldn't be over.
So to kind of reiterate what I brought up at the beginning of this, based on, we don't have a copy of the letter.
Correct.
That's not what Dan's reporting was.
But
Dan's
based off of what you got
yes.
from the letter,
yes.
from the article.
Dan's reporting, and one of the quotes from this seems like it's very, very direct to the sign stealing. But to your point, I don't think that it removes Petitti's thoughts on the entire matter. I think.
But how can you not?
Wait. Wait, hold on a second.
Sorry.
I'm just inferring that he made this statement, delivered this letter to the Big Ten during the infractions hearing, to the NCAA during the infractions hearing.
Right.
In order to emphasize that no more punishment should be delivered for the sign stealing, in order to set the table for whatever you're going to deliver for maybe a lack of institutional control, whatever punishment that is tied to the Matt Weiss investigation, all of that stuff, that the sign stealing not be a part of it. So that's what I'm kind of inferring from this.
But the problem in that is, if we want to get into minutia, the problem with that is you have 11 level 1 violations that you committed.
Yes.
You can't just this is what I think he's trying to do. I think he's trying to put all that to bed because he understands the bombshell is coming and he doesn't want Michigan to get absolutely hammered here from a total aspect. And because, let's call it what it is, Michigan is picked 4th to finish the Big Ten this year. 4th.
Right.
And if you want to go to a playoff, you don't want them to have a postseason ban. Let's call it what it is.
Yes. He wants to protect them now suddenly. And this all comes back to the general theme of this. Petitti does not come out looking strong at all.
No.
He is, in a way, he's cowering to Michigan in order to appease them and make sure that they still look good after the huge fight that he went through when he first stepped in as the commissioner. That was his first year as the commissioner. All the crap that they put him through, and now all of a sudden he's going to bat for them. But most importantly, and you mentioned this not that long ago, a couple minutes ago, the way that this should be handled is that he shouldn't say anything.
Yes.
He shouldn't be in favor. He shouldn't be against. You are not the arbiter of what the ruling is and what the outcome is of this entire encompassing problem. I have said on this show before that I think that the sign stealing, counter stallion stuff was aggressively overblown. We're not going to relitigate that. We have talked about how the recruiting violation thing. I also think that is incredibly overblown in the current era that we're in the recruiting violations for
especially with
FaceTime with kids.
Dogs. Well, right. With hamburgers and hot dogs.
But when we put all this together, yes, it does paint this picture that the entire organization, the entire athletic department was running rampant. That's why the last segment that we did on this, my thoughts sound completely different than all the other segments. So I will stick to this point. I think this news today from Dan, who did a great job reporting on this, really shows that Petitti does not look like he is a power holder in the conference. He should not be bending to what Michigan needs to help itself stay alive. He should be standing on the sideline and then waiting to react afterwards. This makes him look soft.
I agree with that. It takes backbone to legitimately stand up to that. And I think you're 100% right. But here's the thing, too. He also knows that Michigan, let's call it what it is. I'm not saying Indiana with Kurt Cignetti can't build something. That's not what I'm about to say here. Let's call it what it is. The 4 real programs in the Big Ten are Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan. Joe, regardless of what happens with NIL, and maybe the House case does do stuff, and it helps these bigger programs, who knows? Okay, let's say that we do have one transfer portal window and the SCORE Act goes through. When all this is said and done, by the way, Michigan won a national title 2 years ago in the heart of NIL. The bottom line is that you want Michigan to be a player in here when this playoff expands. And I got to be real with you. There's a thought process that I have that there's a reason that Tony Petitti has not accepted anything with Greg Sankey because he wants this stuff with Michigan to be over with. You legitimately do not want Michigan out of the table, and then you agree to a 5+11 model. Why would you? Why would you? Like, you do not want to do that. So again, either you're cowering to Michigan fans or you're doing it for what you think, and what might be, Joe, ironically, what is best for the entire conference is that they don't get hit with anything else. But the bottom line remains is that Michigan, with this whole Weiss investigation, everything that's going on, Joe, how many more level 1 violations do you need? I mean, just so everybody understands, you commit 3 felonies in the United States of America, you're going bye-bye. Like, bye-bye. Meaning the 3 bye-bye? Meaning, like, sometimes if it's aggressive, like very alternating crimes, Joe, you might get life in prison. It's called the 3-strike rule. Like, to commit 3 felonies is very insane. You're literally looking at this man and saying to yourself, brother, you got 11 level 1 violations. Joe, I'm sorry. I have been hammered in reference to our conversations over this Michigan thing from Michigan people. I'm sorry. You did some shady shit. It's time for you to pay the penance. There is no penance that you're technically getting paid, that you're getting hit with right now for all 3 levels of this.
I don't truly. I know that we've kind of tried to project like what the punishment looks like, and I don't know. I don't. I'm no expert on NCAA punishment, so I legitimately don't know what direction I would go in for that. But
I mean, Tennessee, go look it up right now. What was their violation and penalty that they paid during the Jeremy Pruitt stuff? It's in the millions.
Like, well, right. Well, so their punishment was monetary, and that was why in the past I've brought up that if they did hit them anything with specifically the Stallions case, it probably would have been some sort of fine. I don't think that it would have been like
Joe,
any type of postseason ban that would have been given to them.
Well, fine him $15 million. I got to be real with you. When you got a dude at Oracle who literally is paying Bryce Underwood what he did, do you think that they bat an eye at that?
No. Well, that came out last week that he's now the 2nd richest man in the world.
Right, behind Elon. Right?
Which, yeah, I don't know if he's behind Elon. But still, you're right. If some sort of penalty is delivered and he is going to continue to bankroll this program, is that money that they have access to? Is that money that's just going to be quickly knocked out because it's like him spending $15? Is that what that's going to be?
I don't know. But if Weiss is found guilty, then what, Joe? Then what? I'm just saying. I'm asking.
It's incredibly unique to project what's going to happen here because it is such an awful, messed up thing that he did that happened in the same timeline of another completely different issue, 2 other completely different issues that were related to on-field stuff. So that's where this gets really complicated for me and why I don't want to project what's going to happen. The possibility of there being a lack of institutional control just feels likely. And again, to bring it back to the central point, Petitti should not be sticking up for them. He shouldn't.
No, not when this one looms. If the Weiss situation had been dealt with, the recruiting violation had been dealt with, and you're on the Stallions thing, fine. Joe, why are we bringing up the Stallions thing? This is the whole thing why Dan's article makes no sense to me. Why are you bringing – Joe, they already popped them with it.
What do you mean they already popped them with it?
They already popped them with violations of what's going on. Recruiting violations, Stallions, they got a 3-year probation. Wait. Here's the penalty from – Joe, hold on. They've been hit.
No, they had not for the Stallions. They have not been hit for the Stallions.
I get that. But they've already been hit. 3 years of probation, a fine, and limited recruiting access. So they've already been popped. The Stallions thing is the Stallions thing. Maybe you can lump that in with what happened before. But, Joe, if that's where I was trying to get to, if the Stallions thing is still on the table and you have this other level 1 massive act that happened, now what? Now what? Again, trying to get to that whole process of now what? If this man is found guilty in a court of law, now what?
That's what I don't know. That's why I keep saying I'm not. No, I'm curious to see what Petitti says tomorrow in regards to this, because I bet you it's going to be one of the first questions. I really don't think that he wanted this to be public at this. No,
juncture.
I don't think that he did.
Joe, I got to be real with you. He's learning on the job in some of these instances. From a guy who has PR moves and has done PR before, quite honestly, he doesn't handle it in the right way. I went and watched Joel Klatt's interview with him, by the way, 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. Joe, this did not sound like a man that had been seasoned in being a commissioner. I'm sorry.
Well, no, he hasn't been a commissioner before. He's got
learning
no
on the job
in athletic administration. He's been a TV guy. He's been an executive. He worked at a video game company at one point.
What are we doing?
Blizzard.
What are we doing?
I have supported him on a lot of things, and I think that this is probably one of his. This and the playoff model have been 2 massive missteps on his part.
I completely agree here.